Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Trending on this, the 27th of November, 2024. Why do people say the date on these sorts of shows as though that's going to materially change anything?
Well, it's because, we are, after all, a current affairs show. So
well, sure, but is anyone like going, I'm listening to the show today, right now, but it really depends on what day of the month it is.
Oh.
Like, I don't listen to Trending on the 28th, so I'm glad it's the 27th.
Is it for posterity?
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe your comments will also be preserved for posterity. Well, they will actually, because I suppose if you leave them, they'll be included in the chat. And then generations from now, people will be like, I wonder what my grandparents were doing. And then they'll see you were commenting on streamed radio shows, such as this one. Great choice of your time, everybody. Welcome along. This, of course, is the pre-show, the meandering freeform part where, as opposed to the highly structured part that comes after 12 o'clock, where we take a look at the news stories from the last week as well. But feel free to chime in the chat if you are viewing us from, well, anywhere in the country, really. Even internationally. I'm waiting for our first international message. Like, we could potentially get one from Australia, because it would be around about 10 in the morning there. That's a reasonable time to be.
Oh, yeah? Where are you viewing from? You could leave that down in the chat. Let us know.
I'd appreciate it. Where in the world you are. Maybe somebody from the US as well, right? Because they're 16 hours. So maybe this would be like 4 in the afternoon for them. That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean, it really depends what part of the states we're talking about, right?
No, the monolithic United States. Just taken
right.
as one place.
Homogenous.
Yes, the homogenous United States. I keep hearing this word just recently. It was the contiguous United States. I thought that was a great word.
Contiguous mean?
I think that is referring to all parts not including Hawaii and Alaska.
Well, it's a little rude, I feel like.
It's like excluding the newest members of the family. Which I guess technically they are too, aren't they? Pretty sure Hawaii was the 50th, the 51st. They reckon Puerto Rico should be the 51st, but it would just ruin the flag.
Yeah.
Because they got 50 stars. Like, what do you do with the 51st one? Like, you have to, change the star alignment?
If you put it just on top of another star, it is there.
Yeah.
But it's you just have to believe it's there.
Yeah, what number divides evenly into 51? Feels like a prime number to me, off the top of my head.
What number I can Google it.
51. 17? 17 threes.
1, 3, 17, and 51.
Okay, so it's not quite a prime number. I'm just thinking how the layout of the stars would have to go. That's a legitimate question.
This is the content you come to Trending for, isn't it?
Isn't it? What to do with
during the pre-show
flag full of stars, or what else do you think is going to be on the show today? Of course, as well, we're going to be looking at the varying news stories that your searches elevated or perhaps demoted it. Quite the broad gambit today, I would have to say as well.
Yeah. Also,
it's a gamut, not gambit. Sorry, apologies. It's important to speak correctly.
Did you have an X-Men moment?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yep.
Why is he called Gambit?
Yep.
No, I don't know.
We don't know. Also, see if I can do the Channing Tatum Gambit accent, which apparently was a joke, by the way. There are schools of thought. If you haven't seen this in the last Deadpool movie, the X-Men character Gambit turns up, who, according to the law of the X-Men, is from New Orleans and is Cajun, but the accent that Channing gives him is...
He's not Cajun.
No, I don't know what it is.
No.
He's just...
Well, I was saying more so Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Is not,
Well, no, he's not. But, I mean, of course not. That's how actors are. It's not like they have to find someone who's, exactly that guy.
Well, they could have.
Who?
A Cajun actor? Like, you don't think...
go on then.
I'm sure they exist.
Like a Cajun actor.
Look,
go on then.
I'm sure they exist.
Right, so the only person who can play like Professor X is a bald man. Well, they did actually get somebody to do that.
That's actually why
Patrick Stewart
went bald.
Yeah, that's right. All the Picard stuff was really just part of a wider method acting approach, which is why he's such a legend.
And Sir Ian McKellen, he definitely grew his hair out for Gandalf. That's all his real hair.
That's right.
Yeah,
used to just he took up a job as a crossing guard.
What?
So that people could not pass. Surprised you didn't see that one coming. I thought that was kind of an obvious one, but, that's quite all right. Yes. So moments tick on this afternoon. Let me just update my producer from outside of the room.
Christmas tree up in the studio now. You can see it behind me.
It's a little bit
It is a little wah.
Little
In
bit
fact, Tom and Di were both. Di particularly was taking it very personally that the
really?
Christmas tree is wah, because they were working, however, with a broken base. When your foundation isn't strong.
I was honestly, you beat me to it. That's
Yep.
why we work together so well. Corny biblical references and so
right.
on. If the foundations are destroyed,
That's right.
you know, what can the righteous do? That's what I want to know. And the answer is you end up with a wonky tree. But then better a wonky tree in the hand than two in the bush.
No baubles in the bush.
Exactly.
That's right.
Correct. As that wise man once said. So I don't actually know. Is this even coming up in your... Oh, maybe you can see it over Josh's shoulder in his shot.
It's right now.
Yep.
The shot is on me. I've got a massive amount of headroom, but I can't control the camera. If anybody is watching that can control the camera, that might be helpful. But yeah, it's me and the tree at the moment.
You and the tree. Amazing. I need to go to the hotkey bank, which is where we play all the little sound effects and so on from everyone. I feel like I might have told you guys that before, but I'm always curious to know how much of the behind-the-scenes stuff you guys actually care about, because there's a certain amount of magic and mystery to it, but then when you're in it all the time, you don't really think about it.
Hotkeys.
Hotkeys.
It probably sounds super
Logging
cool
into
and
Zeta. Ooh, Zeta. Ooh.
technical.
Ooh.
Gonna play it out of the log.
Googleplex, Hypernet, megabytes and stuff. How long we got? We got about a minute. Everybody. So I might switch us over to live now. When you hear us next, we shall be, of course, live for your listening pleasure. Remember, though, we love to hear from you guys, so you can get your comments in the old chats below and so on. Text us if you prefer, and talk to you again soon.
Live on air and online. Trending with Andrew Curtis.
That really hits different, doesn't it? The opening part of that. Welcome to Trending, everybody, where the hotkeys we play are louder than anybody else's. We are going to take a look at the headlines over the last week and discover what stories New Zealanders, just like you, or maybe nothing like you, were interested in. Because, of course, every week we get our weekly news bulletins, our daily bulletins. Doesn't give us a fair picture of what New Zealanders are interested in. I say no. And you'll find out why as we dive through these terms today, of course. Some of them entertainment related, some sports, some, well, civic figures, the rise and fall of notable names, all that and more with my able-bodied and even more able-minded co-host Josh Beatty.
Well, thank you very much.
Welcome along.
It's good to be here. My body is able, although is a little bit broken after netball yesterday, but my mind is willing, I suppose.
What did you do to your body?
I just played netball and I'm over 30 now, so it hurts.
I hate how easily I can understand exactly what you're talking about. You know
Hey.
what I've done?
Yep.
I've injured myself again.
No, well, I am not
Do you
surprised.
want to guess where the injury is?
Is it your wrist?
It really is.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
the same injury?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could just stop punching stuff, but I can't. I do it within the safety of a kickboxing gym. But that's not why you tuned in today, of course. You tuned in to find out what stories are going on. So before we dive into that, remember, the show is is you guys letting us know what you think.
Yeah, do get in touch. How are you doing today? Hey, look, if you're over 30 and feeling it a little bit, let us know. But let us know also what you reckon will be coming up on Trending. We'd love to hear from you. 8168 with the keyword life. That's how you get in touch via the text. Or, of course, you can comment below if you are watching via the stream. If you didn't know, the show is streaming. You can see myself and Andrew right now. Head either to rimmermedia.co.nz and click through to YouTube or Facebook.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
So let us then take a look at the first of our stories today. And we're actually leading off with an entertainment story and how to talk about this without casually flexing on you. When I went and saw this show on the West End in London a few years ago, I thought to myself, what a good show. Wonder if they'll turn it into a film. To be fair, I didn't actually think that. But it is inevitable these days. If something has been well received in one format, then those incredibly creative types at film studios will find some way of turning it into a movie. And thus, we have the number 16 trending news story in the country over the last week. And that is Wicked.
Yeah, that's right. So the new film, I believe, out now. Also, though, bit of a heads up because I didn't know this and you didn't know this until I told you. Coming out in 2 parts.
Yeah. Now, the original Broadway musical, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, is maybe 2 or 3 hours long.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of padding to try and turn a 1.5 hour, 2.5 hour show into what would effectively be, 3-4 hours worth of content?
Yeah, well, it's got to be, almost maybe 6, I guess, depending if they're 3 hours movies each. But I don't know, that's usually what you're looking at these days. Maybe they're a little bit shorter.
Sure.
I haven't seen either the musical on stage or the actual film. It is getting quite good reviews.
It is, and a rather interesting press tour as well, which is a whole other thing to discuss. But there has been a contingent question that's being asked of those who head along to this, because the show's been around for a while. It's been performed in London and the West End, but I'm pretty sure it's done other theatre runs around the world. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was in New Zealand not too long ago.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
If you have never seen this at all, I'm going to play a little clip for you now. It's just 1 minute long, one of the songs from Wicked. I should also say, by the way, a summary of the plot line is that it's kind of like a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, but from the perspective of the Wicked Witch of the West and her origin story and how maybe she's just been a misunderstood anti-hero this whole time. So let's see what happens when she meets Glenda at the school that they're both attending and, she tries to give her a bit of a social makeover. So there you have it. That's a taste of what you'll get from Wicked, can I just say, from the comfort of the studio, a mile away from ever having to do this and be judged for it myself. The lip syncing kind of annoying.
Ooh.
Did you say the lip syncing doesn't quite match up? What do you reckon?
I couldn't quite tell because I was watching our camera feed and cutting between, so I wasn't looking at the full video, I will say.
All right, well then what do you think of the song?
I mean, it's a classic song.
Is it a classic song?
It's well known.
Okay.
It's like, I haven't seen, again, the movie or the stage show, but I know that song.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. So that's what to look forward to. A familiar face, of course, if you follow pop music. Ariana Grande is in there as Glenda, the Good Witch of the North.
Glenda or Glinda?
Yes. Glinda is correct.
Thank you.
That was my test, and you passed.
You're welcome.
And so, of course, because this has been around for a while, one thing that's now being wrestled with by filmgoers, should you or should you not sing along when you go to the movie?
Yeah, because the songs, like I just demonstrated, are well known. And especially if you're going along, it's probably considered that you do know the music.
Yeah.
But it's been put out there. There's, in fact, a couple of articles written about this, whether or not you should sing in the movie theatre.
Should I also say, too, one of the voices that's chimed in on this is The Rock.
Yeah.
Why? Because?
I think because he's got a movie out at the moment, so...
Oh, yeah. Doesn't he always, though?
Yeah, well...
Is that news to anybody? He's in that movie that was really hyped up and then wasn't that good.
Oh, well.
The movie that everyone said was going to be awesome. It's got good action scenes, but the story is crap and the acting's not very good. That movie that had a lot of money spent on it and then didn't really perform very well at the box office, and for some reason he keeps getting these roles? That movie.
Yeah, so much of them.
Yeah, exactly. As one last reference to this too, by the way, what makes it interesting to talk about is this new genre of article that we have discovered on The Guardian.
Oh, yes, right.
That we wanted to show you today as well. So, look, if you do join us on the stream right now on Facebook Live or on YouTube, then you'll be able to read this along with us. Otherwise, we'll try and give you a bit of a rundown of what you're looking at. But it's a new kind of, narrative fiction, perhaps?
Yeah, like, the idea, I suppose, is there's a back and forth conversation happening in the article. Maybe it's more of a review?
Yeah, so it goes like this. Name, cinema sing-alongs. Age, hard to tell the exact origin, but the most recent example is just days old. Appearance, like a film, but with a badly malfunctioning soundtrack. You mean singing along to a movie at the cinema? Yes, exactly. You can't do that. No, not normally. Not ever. That's the most antisocial thing I've ever heard of. But what if you just can't help yourself? And it goes on like this.
Yeah.
Very strange. Very strange to find on, The Guardian in this case, but maybe they're just trying to find a new way of, working with a narrative structure that the kids will be into?
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit, gosh, it messes with my ADHD, I won't lie. Although I have kind of picked up that moment that you've talked about, that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has weighed in. He said, "Not everyone supports the policy. However, Sing, you paid your hard-earned money for a ticket and you've gone into a musical and you're into it." That was ex-wrestler The Rock Johnson.
Has that changed your opinion on anything? Will you be singing along? Why don't you let us know today?
Yeah, get in touch, 8168, with the keyword Rema at the beginning of your message, the traditional way via the text, or of course, if you're watching via the stream, let us know in the comments below, either on YouTube or Facebook. We did, however, Andrew, put this up as a Facebook post.
Oh, yes.
Earlier this
and what
week.
did the people say?
Okay, so Ayla said, no, I paid to watch the movie and the talented singers sing. Either wait for it to come out and sing at home or go to a sing-along version, which does exist.
That's a fair point. And should I say, too, if you are going to sing along, I can absolutely understand why. If you're there to hear Ariana and instead you hear whoever off to your left or right, banging
Aiden.
things out in the wrong key. Yeah. Maybe not too compelling.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Let's move into our number 13 story. And as I said, there's quite the gamut of stories that we are covering today. We've had one that's more showbiz and lighthearted, and now something that's a little more tragic. But Laos, the country of Laos in Southeast Asia, that is trending right now. The number 13 story, in fact, in the country. And it's due to something tragic. And, of course, travel warnings that are being sent out to tourists in that part of the world. We had the tragic passing of a British tourist that has then been linked to methanol poisoning at a Laos hotel, and broader stories being shared of the risks that tourists face when they travel to parts of the world like that and maybe think they're just taking on board the local hospitality. So, of course, the way to address these kind of things is via social media and TikTok. So let's first up hear from a British tourist and them sharing their experience.
Yeah, as you listen or watch this video with us, wait for the surprising moment that, for me, preempting this video, watching it ahead of time, it was surprising me to hear how long the symptoms of methanol poisoning actually take to become apparent.
That is the wrong video. That is not remotely close to the right one. So, well, this is what happens when you do things live, isn't it? Here we go, trying again.
This video short and concise, but last week I got severe methanol poisoning from a hostel in Van Dien. I'm trying to make this video. I'm not trying to tarnish the country, its people, the hospitality business in any way by making this video. It is literally just to help spread awareness and stop this from happening again, and help people who it could have happened to, or if in future it might happen to. I would just not want anyone to go through what me and my partner have had to go through in the past 2 weeks, because it has literally been like the worst 2 weeks of our life. So it's really normal for hostels in Southeast Asia to offer like a happy hour or an hour where you get free drinks, whether that be beers or spirits or cocktails. It just so happened that this hostel was offering either a free bottle of vodka or a free bottle of whiskey, and we had a big table of about 10 people, and we were all sharing what was given to us was like a bottle of locally sourced Lao vodka, and that's what we were all communally drinking. It wasn't until 15 hours later that my symptoms started to kick in, which were extreme tiredness. I was practically asleep for a whole day. I was violently throwing up. I was really lucid. I had visual impairment, like I could barely see. It was just like bright lights. And then my boyfriend made a decision to take me to a private hospital in Vientiane, and the people there literally saved my life. It's also really important to know that if you do unknowingly drink methanol, the symptoms don't start until typically like 15 to 18 hours later. So it might have happened, well, it has happened to so many more people, but you just might not even know about it because you just think you were suffering from a really severe hangover. And I know it affects everyone's bodies differently. Me and my boyfriend had the same amount of vodka. I had to be hospitalised, he didn't, and he only got his bloods checked because I was in the hospital, and we both drank the same thing. So I know I am stating the obvious here, but honestly, if you are travelling Southeast Asia, just please stick to bottled beers, cork wine. If you are wanting alcohol that's a cocktail or a spirit, just please 100% know what it is before you have it. We're sensible people. This happened to us. You never think it's going to happen to you. So just please be vigilant about what you're putting into your bodies. And I'm so lucky that I'm okay. Like, I'm not fully recovered, but I am getting stronger every day. And yeah, my thoughts and prayers honestly go out to all the people that have been affected. And I just want everyone to hopefully be able to heal from this.
So a near miss for her, but again, the story that inspired this in particular was Bianca Jones and Holly Bowles. They were the ones who passed away after a night out in Vang Vieng, which is a small village in Laos, and that was, of course, earlier this month.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see this getting quite a bit of coverage here in New Zealand, because it also does seem, as she said in that video, it kind of seems like stating the obvious, that this is a big risk that is often a known entity when you're in Southeast Asia.
How much trouble do I want to get myself into this early in the show, Josh?
That is up to you. It is your show.
Well, that is absolutely right. And everything that I do is approved by Josh ahead of time. Complaints to josh.beatty at... here's the thing I think with this story. I think that it is more attention-grabbing than it is newsworthy. Because it is a tragic tale. Don't get me wrong. But it involves young, beautiful people traveling to far-off destinations, and it's got strong narrative value to it. But there's nothing about this story that is like outlandishly... I mean, you mentioned it yourself. You go to a strange part of the world. It's like anybody who travels to, say, India and then eats food from a street cart and gets violently ill.
Goes to Bali and drinks the water.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, yes, it can harm you, and it's really sad if it does. But at the same time, is it like a massive, massive risk? Are we losing hundreds of people any given day to this sort of thing? Is that cold? Is that harsh? Is that too dismissive? I just feel like it's like, you remember that girl who got caught smuggling drugs in her bodyboard bag, Chappelle Corby. It's a number of years ago. For those of you who know, you'll know, and Josh is looking at me like a stunned mullet, so we won't worry about him right now. But of course, her story of being caught importing drugs into, I think it might have been Indonesia. She was found guilty, did a whole bunch of prison time there and things like that. This is something that happens all the time. Was she guilty or not? This was the whole wider question that people were asking. Did the drugs get put inside her bag and so on? Some of these things, just like the personality involved, catches people's attention. And, well, cynically enough, it gets clicks. So I would not want anyone to get an outsized impression of how risky it is. I'm not going to say it's not risky. That's not my point here. I just feel like it's the kind of story that you can latch onto because there's a strong emotive value to it. But I don't know, just feels like kind of tabloid journalism, if you ask me.
Is our takeaway then just be mindful?
Well, but isn't it always? That's exactly my point, right? Like, what is really new about this story? Going to a strange part of the world and drinking things that you're not sure where they might have come from.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
There's the moral of that story.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
There we go. We still got a job, do you think, after that?
Let me check the text machine, which,
We'll
by
find
the way,
out tomorrow.
You can get in touch, 8168 keyword REMA, or of course, get in touch via the stream, but no immediate complaints.
All right. We haven't seen anyone bursting through the front door yet. It's the boss's birthday anyway, so maybe he's distracted.
He's a little bit more lenient.
Let's then take a look at the number 12 story in the country over this week. And, well, this is really interesting. And also, by the way, introducing a new news source. I don't think we've played a clip from The Platform before. It's a relatively recent comer to the New Zealand media scene, independent online radio show, originally launched by Sean Plunkett. And so in this case, though, a discussion we're about to play for you, inspired by the number 12 news story in the country. But this is whooping cough. Whooping cough is the number 12 news story in the country. And as I think you're about to hear from Michael Laws, who was the host on the platform, the show that he was doing at the time, I think it does reflect a shift in attitude and opinion, probably inspired in particular post-COVID and people's feelings about immunization campaigns and what the long-term health effects may well be for New Zealanders and perhaps the most vulnerable New Zealanders as well. So, look, before we talk about it ourselves, Josh, is there anything in particular we should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, look, it's probably unlikely you'd think that you'd find a comical link or a comical moment in a story about whooping cough, but I do actually want you to listen out for the comical link between Michael and his guest, Helen particularly, her link with whooping cough. It's a notable moment. You'll know it when you get there.
All right, here we go. This is the discussion then about whooping cough from the platform, and between Michael Laws and Helen Patoussis-Harris.
New Zealand had one of the highest immunisation rates, particularly of children in the world. But that is dropping like a stone at the moment. And I have to say the whooping cough vaccination rates, which is just something this third world, there have been hundreds of cases now, literally hundreds of cases, 263, I think, confirmed cases of whooping coughs in the last month, which is just, for those of us who grew up at a certain generation, that's just sort of like, oh my God, it's like the Black Plague's come back. How can that be? The answer to that is because immunisation and vaccination rates are so low that these kind of epidemics, and I think in actual fact an epidemic was declared last week as a consequence of these whooping cough infections. But of course it's not just that, it's other infections that tend to make us look pretty third world as well. Joining us to talk about that, and somebody who's been at, of course, the heart of all this, is Dr. Helen Patoussis-Harris. I'm sorry, Helen, I always do it. And she joins us now. Helen, how do I pronounce that middle word? Helen Patoussis, is that right?
You're pretty close. It's Patoussis, yeah.
Patoussis.
Yeah, not to be confused with pertussis, otherwise known as whooping cough.
Oh, there you go. Well, there you go, you see. Name like that. There's an old story about, the name you have, you go into that particular profession. There you go.
Yeah, it's like people and their pets, eh?
That's right, yes. You always end up looking like them. You're absolutely right. All right, now, except, what sort of pet have you got then? Don't tell me. Oh, you see, well, there you go. Well,
crazy
of course
one.
you have.
Crazy.
You see?
Tonkini.
You see, Donald, I think Donald Trump. No, it wasn't Donald Trump, was it J.D. Vance? Except you're not single. All right, now, whooping cough.
No.
Get on with it, Michael.
Whooping cough. It's unbelievable to me that in 2024 we've got hundreds of people young children being affected by whooping cough just in the last week, and I think an epidemic has been declared. Can I ask you why? I'm looking at the immunisation rates, and they have been dropping like a stone since, well, they were going down sort of steadily in a sort of linear way until 2020, but boy, they've dropped off a cliff since then. What's the problem?
Yeah. Well, we chucked a match on the problem, I think. And, of course, we can't blame COVID for all of it, but certainly we were already sliding. And then, as you were articulating before, what happened during the pandemic certainly had an additive effect. And now I think you're quite right. We've got two issues. One is the loss of trust and the loss of confidence and the impact of what has become an infodemic and a misinfodemic. And then the other side is the erosion of our services to the point where it's actually the harder thing to do is to try and access a service and get a vaccine. So I think that's the problem that's going to result in the hospitalisation, because this disease actually is quite cyclic, no matter what you do. But because it's even if you get the infection, naturally you can have it 2 or 3 times across your lifetime. But what we can do is stop people actually getting really sick. And so if we're seeing hospitalisations, this is bad. This is really bad.
But I mean, so I get COVID. Okay, I understand COVID, that there was a resistance from it on the basis of this seemed to be relatively new and stuff like that. I got that. And I thought the measles, mumps and rubella stuff, that was a fringe group that were still, going around and saying, well, this is a problem. And I think had been widely discredited by everybody anyhow. Why now, though, since 2020, are simple stuff that is non-controversial, you would have thought, vaccination against whooping cough, for example. Why is there such a lack of trust in that?
No, I think multifactorial. One of the things is we keep getting new cohorts through. So people who, the last time we were having discussions about measles vaccines, we had a different group of people who were having kids. Now their kids are having kids and so forth. So you're sort of almost doomed to repeat it. And just to tap into the latest, cohort of parents, we've got, films being manufactured to revisit the same old myths. The myths haven't changed at all, but they just get rehashed. And of course, we've had this, just as an example of the purchase of one social media platform, Twitter, that then became X, and the algorithms. It's phenomenal to watch how the information that is perhaps wrong in so many ways is what goes further and faster. So people just end up saturated in this stuff, and over time.
I've got to be honest with you.
People.
If I'm a parent with small children, the last place I'm going to go for health advice is Twitter.
Well, you'd be alone in that one, Michael, because that's what we do these days, isn't it? We go to the internet. And who amongst us has not been guilty of doing a quick Google, maybe doing a quick YouTube, jumping on Twitter, whatever it might be, your weapon of choice. And whatever the case may be, the outcome has been a reduction. As Michael Laws himself said, it's gone off a cliff. Our immunisation rates, not just for whoop and cough, but other childhood illnesses as well. Very concerning stuff.
Well, you're exactly right as well, Andrew, because today's trending episode proves exactly what you said. Whooping cough is in the trending results. People have been going to Google either for information about this, hearing about this, wanting to know more. What are they finding when they go online and the different sources giving them different information? And as was talked about by Helen in that interview, the old narratives are just being reimagined in different ways to be pushed forward in more, I guess, new and exciting ways, for want of a better description.
Yeah, I feel like the social fabric is straining somewhat, and there are many casualties. One of those being that those things that we've often done, perhaps without thinking, and, you can make an argument that doing things without thinking is never a good idea. But of course, you can't sit down and reanalyze every choice you make. At some point, you're relying on conventional wisdom, aren't you? And for most of us, that involved things like, childhood vaccination routines and so on. COVID obviously shook up a lot of people. That's what we heard in that conversation there, but I'm sure I didn't have to tell you about this. I'm curious to know, though, for those of you who are watching along and listening along today, whether or not maybe your own behavior when it comes to immunization for your children has changed, has been affected one way or the other. Because again, we can tell that people are searching for more information about the illness, but I'd love to know a little bit more if this affects you directly.
Yes, do get in touch, 8168 with the key word REMA. That's how you text, or of course, if you want to join us via the stream, if you are watching, leave a comment below. Actually, with that said, comments below the clip we just watched from YouTube, I thought were quite interesting, Andrew, because some of the comments are along the lines of, there was this one here that says, people are more aware of the ingredients in vaccinations these days and are less likely to trust government officials. I think that is a good thing. So this is maybe the rhetoric that is being pushed, as we've been talking about, post-COVID, now with more skepticism towards vaccines.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And another serious topic, though, coming in this time at number 7, and a name that sports fans in general may well be aware of. He was the person who launched the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, into wider public awareness, but Conor McGregor, a name bigger than the sport himself. Now, he, of course, was a champion in the lightweight division and went on to lose his belt and then, well, some would say lose his mind a little. He'd been acting incredibly erratically over the last few years and a series of losses and then injuries starting to mount up. Now, Conor's managed to make a lot of money for himself outside of the ring. You might recall him doing a very large profile fight with Floyd Mayweather that was boxing only. Now, of course, he lost that fight because, if you can't wrestle somebody and you're an MMA fighter, you're going to be at a disadvantage, aren't you? But then, of course, getting involved in other investments and Proper 12 Whiskey, which was a brand that he founded.
Recently appeared in the movie Roadhouse, the remake.
Absolutely. And, well, people were concerned for a while about his behavior. And in fact, before one of his, some would say the fight that marked the beginning of his decline against Khabib Nurmagomedov, I've fumbled that, but if you see the name written down, you'll understand why. Connor attacked the bus that this particular opponent was on, smashed some of the glass, got into a huge scuffle there, ended up losing that subsequent fight as well. This all painted a picture of somebody who had very much gone off the rails. And now, in the last few days, we've discovered how far off the rails he had gone. A civil trial in Ireland where Conor McGregor has been found guilty of sexual assault. And so that is the reason that he finds himself at number 7 on our trending news today. But before we dive into this more, let's take a look at how it was covered on news.com.au. And in fact, the journalists themselves attempting to get some comment from Conor McGregor as he left the courtroom.
In a civil trial in Ireland has found that the mixed martial arts star Conor McGregor raped a woman in a Dublin hotel in 2018. Conor Gillies was outside the Dublin courtroom as the MMA fighter emerged from court.
You could cut the tension with a knife in that packed courtroom here behind me in Dublin in the past few minutes. One of Ireland's biggest stars sitting there with his head in his hands as the decision of the jury was read out to this court after 8 days of evidence centering around the events of a Christmas night out back in December of 2018, centering on a Dublin hotel, centering on what the Conor McGregor described as consensual sex between him, a woman, and his friend James Lawrence. The woman's version of events was very, very different. And I think we can now see what's about to happen here. Here comes Conor McGregor. Let's go and see if we can have a chat with him here, live on Sky News. Mr. McGregor, you're a rapist. What do you think?
What do you have to say? Say sorry for what has happened.
Do you have any reaction or apology to the women at the centre of this? Do you have a reaction? No, come on. Do you have an apology to the women at the centre of this?
What do you have to say about your son? Don't push me again.
Well, there we have no comment from Conor McGregor as he made his way swiftly out of the court building here in Dublin and into his Bentley. Let's remember, focusing as we were just a few moments ago around the events of 2018 in that Dublin hotel, Conor McGregor suggesting that it was consensual sex. Well, the court here heard a very different story, evidence that it was a brutal rape. The woman, to quote, was battered. It was a savage attack, and his legal team, her legal team, branded Conor McGregor a devious coward, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. Now, this was not a criminal case. This was civil proceedings here in Dublin. There was no prison sentence that would be handed out, and essentially the burden of proof in this case was lower. It must have been proved on the balance of probability rather than beyond reasonable doubt that would be the case in a criminal trial. And the jurors essentially had to answer two very, very simple questions. Did Mr. McGregor, the man you just watched getting into that car, the Irish sports star, did he assault the woman in question? And the simple answer to that from the jury was yes. The second man, the co-accused here, did Mr. Lawrence, the friend of Conor McGregor, assault the woman? The answer to that was a flat no. And then very quickly it turned to the discussion of damages, the discussion of money in this civil case, and ultimately it was €188,000 or thereabouts. This is a man who leaves this court tonight not only being tarred with the tag of being a rapist in the eyes of a civil court here in Ireland, but clearly this is a sports star whose reputation is now completely in tatters.
So that is the story, Conor McGregor. And again, a story of maybe, somebody who flew too close to the sun, let it enable him to let out all of his worst vices. And I have to say, from the journalist's point of view as well, when you're trying to get a comment and not trying to get a comment, man leaving the court and said, "So you're a rapist now, what do you think?" It's like, come on, buddy. This is just performative nonsense from as well at this point, isn't it? But still, important to know that in this case, justice has been done in the eyes of the court there as well. Only a civil proceeding, so there will be no jail time for Conor McGregor. Hard to know what else to say about this.
Well, I guess my question to you, Andrew, is somebody who is a fan of mixed martial arts
Yes.
and the UFC. There will be those out there potentially listening right now who are anti mixed martial arts
Sure.
and the UFC and the sport being too brutal, too violent. And this might be evidence for their part to say, when your behavior is, when you're allowed to, it's, given behavior in the ring to be
Sure.
brutal and violent, does that not breed that outside of this realm? What would maybe your response be to a question like that?
Well, as a paid advocate for the UFC, as I am, look, it's a fair question to make. I would, in some ways, cast the net a little bit wider as well and say that anytime a person is placed in an elevated position of power, there is a risk that the lesser angels will display themselves in your life. We know this from other sports people in New Zealand as well. Of course, for us, we're more likely to hear about rugby players behaving badly. We know about it as actors behaving badly. And I think you'd be pressed to say that acting was a particularly violent or aggressive pursuit. Also musicians and other artists as well. And so, look, I think it just speaks more to the kind of moral downward slide that you can go on to when suddenly you get a lot of money, you get a lot of attention, you get a lot of praise, a lot of people coming up to you and providing all sorts of opportunities for you. And then, before you know it, you're in this position like somebody like Conor McGregor is. His ego and brashness was a huge selling point for the UFC. That was one of the things that attracted people to him and thus the sport. But again, it does seem in this case that it was a case of, that ego spiraling. And then, of course, this poor woman facing the brunt of it. It always makes me wonder, too, in situations like this, is this the only incidence?
I mean, I imagine when nobody else around you is saying no, probably not.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Moving then to a celebrity of a different sort, though, that has turned up in New Zealand. And I love these kind of search terms as well because they really show a generational gap. So, Josh, who do you think was behind the surge in searches for I Show Speed?
So surely somebody like, I don't know, Noah Lyles, Usain Bolt, I Show Speed. Somebody who's really fast.
Exactly. Except not. In this case, I Show Speed, otherwise just known as Speed, is a YouTuber who has made, to be honest, I would struggle to know exactly what has made his name for, other than the fact that he just was a streamer.
Streaming really, he's known for being very energetic. He's also known for being very athletic.
Right.
So he's actually run against Noah Lyles. He's very sporty and actually participates with a lot of well-known sports stars in their field and actually does quite well.
Yeah.
Did a stream with Ronaldo.
Yep.
So, he's garnered that kind of attention and is super high energy, super adventurous, and I guess just fun to watch, really.
Well, again, you may well have either followed this yourself or been forced to drop the kids off somewhere so they could see where Speed was going to be hanging out. Well, in case you did miss it, I'll give you a 25-second taster of what happened when One News decided to update their viewers on this personality who, once again, was the number 6 trending news story in the country. And anything in particular, Josh, with this one that stood out to you?
Yeah, so Speed made his way to the All Blacks exhibition, which is actually just down the road from us here at Rema Media. If you ever get the opportunity to go along, I went. It's pretty cool. But he made one crucial mistake while he was there.
Hundreds of young people turned up outside the Sky Tower to catch a glimpse of famous YouTuber I Show Speed. Some climbed on top of a van outside the casino entrance. The 19-year-old has a whopping 33 million subscribers and more than 3.2 billion views. He visited the All Blacks exhibition at the Sky City Convention Centre, which he live-streamed while wearing a Warriors shirt, and has now left the area. The crowd has now dispersed.
Wow. Well, thanks anyway, Speed. Appreciate you. What do you think it is about this guy that caused him to become so prominent?
The next guy off the cab, like the next cab off the rank, really?
Yeah.
Like somebody actually has to take, then we want something like this, or young people want that kind of somebody to
love?
Yeah.
As Freddie Mercury once said.
I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a kind of intangible, isn't it? These internet personalities that you look from the outside.
That's really what I think it is. Like, it's very hard for us admittedly, as people who, I don't know if you've even watched him stream ever before, Andrew.
I've seen clips, but no, in terms of actually sitting down and watching a dedicated stream, it's very hard to know particularly what's the secret sauce.
Yeah, I only knew him tangentially from other YouTubers that I'd engaged with and stuff like that. He seemed, in my analysis, actually a little bit brash and a little bit prickly, but that's kind of his energy. So it's really hard to describe why that he has just garnered so much popularity and even sent teenagers here in New Zealand, as you saw in that clip if you were watching the stream, up on top of vans. And
I was surprised. I really didn't think he'd have that strong a following in New Zealand.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'm completely shocked by that one. But, that's the opportunity that exists for the young people of Aotearoa. You play your cards right, and you may well be the next internet-based personality. In his defense, I will say this. I remember somebody once asking a question of Judy Bailey, the mother of the nation, for those of us who go that far back, which admittedly is now further back than I'd like to acknowledge. But, why was she worth the money that they were then paying her? I think she was getting like $1 million a year, like 15, 20 years ago, something like that. Sounds like astronomical sums. And one of the things that you could say in her defense is like, well, look, you think anybody can read the news, but there's just something about the way that Judy Bailey did it that everybody really liked. And it's as complex or as simple as that. Sometimes you've just, if you've got it, you've got it. And it turns out this kid, he's got it.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And then a name that was very sad to see in the search terms over this last week. In fact, it was the number 2 overall, but in fact today I think it's pretty close to the number 1 search term in the country. But Nikki Kaye, former National Party minister, passed away after a battle with cancer. And I was actually looking through some of the posts that were made in her honour over the last few days, and I realised that Nikki did something individually twice that the National Party was unable to do.
Oh, yes?
Beat Jacinda Ardern.
Oh.
Twice.
What?
Auckland Central MP, Nikki Kaye, beat Jacinda Ardern twice.
Oh, wow.
So, as I say, though, Nikki, having passed away, is being commemorated by a number of political figures in New Zealand. So let's hear what they had to say first and foremost, starting with, of course, former Prime Minister John Key.
Today's a really, really sad day because we've lost Nikki Kaye, someone that had tremendous tenacity, determination and dedication to everything she did. It didn't really matter whether she was fighting for the charities she believed in, her constituents at Auckland Central, her National Party and government portfolios, or the many people that she just helped in her life. So a life cut short and one that will be sadly missed.
She was an incredible person. She had so much energy, so much enthusiasm for life. An incredibly brave politician who actually came to Parliament and came to Wellington determined to do things. And the way that she advocated and championed for youth and for women and for LGBTQ communities as well was really quite phenomenal. So we're going to miss her. She's going to be sadly missed by many in the National Party, but I know across the whole of the political divide as well.
She loved the National Party, but she always strove to build relationships across the Parliament, to build bridges between groups and perspectives, and she truly put causes and values ahead of her own personal ambition. She was hugely encouraging of me to enter Parliament and was one of the people who said, if you want to change it, go and be it.
Nikki Kaye and I both entered Parliament at the same time. We shared a passion for education. I regarded her as both an opponent and a friend as well. She was incredibly hard-working, very, very diligent, and I know she was really committed to serving New Zealand, making New Zealand a better place, and particularly creating a better life for Kiwi kids.
I think Nikki really set the bar for what it was to be an electorate MP. And part of that was why she ended up having such a phenomenal reputation. She was incredibly well respected across the parliamentary aisle, and that was a function of her work ethic, but also the way that she so frequently put people at the centre of absolutely everything that she did as a parliamentarian.
So Chloe Swarbrick's there. Chloe Swarbrick, sharing her thoughts on the passing of Nikki Kaye. What stood out to you there, Josh?
Well, each person who got an opportunity to speak in that clip, obviously, when you're speaking of somebody who's passed, you share kind words and thoughts, and this is the moment where, the best is said of that person. And I did notice that, of all the political spectrum, there was only good things to say. I would say, however, the cynic in me wonders how much that is just for the sake of this is the moment that has happened. It is sad to hear. We do not want to, glaze over, the death of somebody. But even John Key at the beginning, has he had like plastic surgery or something? Because the lack of remorse on his face.
Yeah, right.
It's just, it almost breaks my heart for Nikki. I guess I hope what they are saying is genuine and true.
Yeah.
I guess I want to believe the best in our politicians, but the skeptic in me is not doing that.
I tell you what actually speaks one of the highest to me about her political legacy as well, is if you do consider, ironically enough too, those last words coming from Chloe Swybrick, who effectively took over as MP for Auckland Central. After Nikki Kaye. Can you imagine Auckland Central being a National Party stronghold these days? It tells you the kind of person that she was. I mean, Nikki was always understood to be somebody at the more liberal side of the National Party. I mean, as you can probably imagine, within any given political party, you've got those who are more on the conservative and liberal side, even within that same tent, so to speak. But, I mean, you are right, Josh, though. Broadly speaking, people speaking very highly of her. Other MPs as well putting out their commemorative notices. David Seymour, Willie Jackson, all sorts. And even Marama Davidson. So somebody who will be sadly missed. And, of course, I mean, at one point in her career, too, so close to being the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand. And so we do mourn her passing again as a consequence of her health battle. And so Nikki Kaye was your number 2 search term in the country over this last week.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
We're almost at our number 1, but before we get there, we do have an honourable mention to make, and that's particularly important for those of us within the wider faith community. But on the Associated Press website, TD Jakes. TD Jakes was in the headlines. Now, of course, for those unfamiliar with TD Jakes, first of all, well done. I don't know how you managed to avoid the influence of TD Jakes throughout the years. Because
especially being a Rema listener.
Yeah, he's, look, the guy has had a huge impact, huge profile, particularly from his church, Potter's House in Dallas. But unfortunately, though, suffering some health struggles, and so that was part of the reason why on the Associated Press website he was then the number 7 rated search term in the country. Well, sorry, search term on that particular website as well. And in fact, we have an update from CBS Texas to let us know, as of a couple of days ago, what the situation was with TD's health.
He is an internationally known preacher based here in Dallas. This morning, during a 9 a.m. Sunday service, Bishop T.D. Jakes of the Potter's House suffered a health incident during a morning prayer. The whole thing caught on camera as that morning service was being streamed around the world. Our Olivia Leach joining us now outside the Potter's House in Dallas with more on the megachurch pastor.
Every Sunday, thousands of parishioners come here to the Potter's House in Dallas for their Sunday service. This is where Bishop T.D. Jakes suffered that medical incident while on stage. Now the video of the incident is going viral. In the video that's now gone viral, you can see Bishop Jakes finished his Sunday sermon and then got quiet, seemed to shake. The crowd reacting before several people rushed on stage to come to his aid. On the Potter's House Facebook page, parishioners and followers around the world sent prayers for Bishop Jakes' quick recovery. In a statement posted online, the Potter's House said Bishop T.D. Jakes experienced a slight health incident and received immediate medical attention. They thanked the community for the outpouring of love, prayers, and support, and said that Bishop Jakes is stable and under the care of medical professionals. The Potter's House did not share if T.D. Jakes was hospitalized following the incident or what may have led up to the incident. In Dallas, Olivia Leach, CBS News, Texas.
And so, as I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of people praying for T.D. Jakes right now, and an incredibly influential figure within Christian ministry, not just in the US, but of course around the world, Josh.
Yeah, it's certainly sad to see. He also spoke of note at the inauguration of Barack Obama. So, has been somebody who has been in the position of church leader for a long time. Scary to see. And, interesting with this day and age that, their services are live streamed. The reason we have footage of the moment as it occurred, and you could be even forgiven for not realizing if you did actually see on the stream that actually anything was happening until people arrive. But for better or for worse, we have that ability to watch all these moments now, either live in real time or see it later, and scary stuff for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he does have a large support staff around him. I know he'll have access to the best of medical care, and of course, people praying for him as well at the moment too. But TD Jakes, he was the number 7 news story on the Associated Press website over the last week.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now for the real surprise of the week. If you ask me, I did not see this one coming in a million miles. Chess. Chess is your number 1 search term in the country on the last week. People, learning how to play? Has something happened in chess? Have they changed the rules, added a few more pieces, changed the layout of the board?
Added a few more pieces. What would you add?
It's the chess expansion. You don't know how you do that? Like you have the ring around the outside of it. Add a few extra squares and then pieces that can teleport perhaps?
A jester that could do crazy moves. It can move one way one turn and one way the next.
What if you had a ranged weapon? Like something
The
that could
archer?
only attack stuff that's 2 or 3 squares away.
Trebuchet?
The trebuchet takes out 3 pieces at a time, that sort of thing. Stops you from camping in the base, designed to break things up.
I think the the chess purist out there probably rolling over and just...
Yeah, but the video gamers like us are thinking, yes, this is what the game needs.
I'm
this whole
sure,
time.
something like that exists too.
Yeah, no doubt, right? So, it turns out that there is the World Chess Championships going on right now. So that might explain why people are getting so caught up in all of this one. And Josh, we've got a play from the championships to show people right now. What are we about to look at?
Okay, so I have to give you a little bit of context before we get into this.
Please
so the big
do.
reason that chess is the number 1 search term at the moment, even here in New Zealand, is because, as you said, Andrew, the World Chess Championship happening at the moment. Multiple games, of course, played between the 2 competitors in
Naturally.
the final.
Yep.
Ding Liren, I believe it is. And then, do you want to have a go at trying this?
Gukesh Domaraju.
Well done.
You wouldn't know if I got it wrong anyway. What are you giving me this well done for? I could literally say anything right now and you'd be like, that's great.
Look, what you said looks to match what I've got in front of me.
No, near enough.
Now, Ding is the current world champion, but coming into this, surprisingly was expected as the underdog, which is a little bit, unheard of. His competitor, Gukesh, is only 18 years old, which is also of note. However, Ding did win with black the first game, which is a big deal because, of course, white goes first.
So white going first, by the way, is kind of like holding serve in tennis. You've kind of got the momentum. The other player has to really mess up for you to lose a point on that one. So let's check out this moment from the World Chess Championships. Why are we doing it? Well, because it was the number 1 search term in the country in the last week.
Yeah, so what you're about to see or hear is commentary during the game, but the game moves so slowly that you'll see the commentators have their own analysis of what may happen and are going through moves that may then eventuate until actually it turns to somebody's turn.
This is going to be fascinating because I've never actually
This
watched...
is streaming within streaming.
It's like, it's Streamception. Competitive chess. I've never seen or heard it before, so let's all do it together.
But so what? Bishop b6, queen b3,
bishop takes c3,
queen b7,
takes b7, bishop f2, rook f2, bishop d5. I think black is okay there.
Bishop d5, bishop b5.
Yeah.
And black is not okay there.
All right, Andrasa Dorian. We need to call him up from his grave.
It's
He passed away,
incredible.
right?
The power of the d5 knight here with all the tactics after queen b3 and stuff.
And I should also show an additional powerful... Well, here, actually, the bishop is just lost right away. But, of course, the queen, in some cases, can come up to a4 with a check. Of course, here, the rook on a1 is developed without making a move. So what were we just looking at? c3, bishop b6 right away.
Yes, bishop b6 and then queen b3.
And you were proposing queen b3. Now, white can also play knight takes b6, bishop takes c6, and
I can't take any more of this.
I think we've missed the moment that I was also particularly looking for, which is okay. So just to describe what you would have seen if you're watching on the stream, you've got 2 commentators who are streaming themselves from different rooms. They've got a chessboard with the various ways that, with basically the way the board looks at the moment, but then they go through various moves to see what could happen. But the bit that was missed, which was also of note, is Ding is not at the board, but you can see that his opponent is there in the stream, but he is able to play his move from within the room he's in, his hotel room, from the virtual board. He doesn't actually have to sit at the table and play that way.
Wow. I mean, you think chess is a sport for antisocial people. That kind of takes it to a whole nother level, doesn't it?
I was wondering.
So, this obviously continuing right now. One of the things that makes it fascinating as well is that there's only one name in chess that I'm aware of, and that is Magnus Carlsen, who has been the most dominant chess player ever, and he's not even going to be at the World Chess Championship. So
this is probably why, because if you are into chess, this is why, with all these storylines and all these things going on, why chess is #1 trending here in New Zealand.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
We've got about 40 seconds before we wrap things up today and before you get back into your chess how-to guides. Maybe decide for yourself that it's something you want to get back into. Honestly, for anyone following along to that, did that make any sense at all? Okay, so we've got a C4 to D5 to carry.
Doesn't it just make you go, I'm never going to pick up chess?
Exactly. No, giving it all away. In New Zealand, though, a couple of stories that are very popular today. Solar Zero. Now, this is a solar-powered stuff company. Help install like panels and so on at your house and batteries and all that kind of thing. Turns out the zero is their bank balance because they've gone bankrupt. So thanks for your services to memes and puns, guys, for naming your company so appropriately. And then also some really sad news because Morgan Freeman, he hasn't been very public over the last little while, was finally seen kind of out and about, but was described by certain news services as looking very sprightly and lively, which of course means that he's not long for this world. And we're sorry to hear that, Morgan. Nevertheless, that is our show for today. While Josh recovers, we just want to thank you again for being a part of all this, for sharing your thoughts and comments, and we look forward to going through the news stories that Kiwis just like you were searching for more information about next week. I'm Andrew Curtis. This has been Trending for this Wednesday, the 27th of November, 2024.